Whether you've been watching South Park since Cartman first shouted his iconic catchphrases, or you're someone who only occasionally hears about the show when it ignites yet another firestorm of controversy, there's no denying this: Season 27 exploded out of the gates like a lit match dropped into gasoline. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't apologetic. It was South Park at its rawest, most confrontational, and most blasphemous. And this time, it didn't just ruffle feathers. It tore the whole bird apart. The season premiere didn't flirt with controversy, it married it. Within minutes of airing, the screen was filled with a grotesquely hilarious caricature of former President Donald Trump. But it wasn't just satire. It wasn't just exaggeration. It was war paint. A declaration. A blood-soaked banner that said, "We're back, and we're not holding anything back." Because there he was. A man bearing Trump's unmistakable face, crawling into bed. Not with Melania. Not with a pile of executive orders. But with Satan. Naked. Writhing. Snarling. Political parody pushed to the point of surreal nightmare. And yet, somehow, still funny. Because that's what Parker and Stone do. They take the absurd, the terrifying, the offensive, and the unthinkable, and they laugh in its face. But this wasn't just another Trump jab. It was the jab. It was a cultural grenade thrown directly at the core of political discourse in 2025. And the White House. They noticed. They responded. They weren't amused. Calling it a desperate attempt for attention, the press office labeled South Park a fourth-rate show. As if dismissing a cultural juggernaut would somehow extinguish the fire. But South Park doesn't need attention. It creates it. It manifests it out of sheer audacity. Because let's talk about timing. This premiere aired just one day after Paramount finalized a staggering $16 million settlement with Trump, something that hadn't even cooled in the headlines before being skewered in animated form. It referenced Trump's claims that he would still receive $20 million in ad value from the network. And in a moment of biting meta-commentary, it featured a fake press conference announcing the cancellation of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, a symbolic execution of late-night liberalism. All wrapped in sarcasm, sin, and savage social critique. And then came San Diego Comic-Con. In a panel that felt less like a celebration and more like a funeral for political decorum, creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone sat before a roaring crowd. And with their signature blend of mockery and nonchalance, they offered a two-word apology for the chaos they unleashed. "We're sorry." But you could practically hear the smirk. Because that apology was dipped in irony. Drenched in satire. A wink to fans. A jab to critics. A reminder that South Park apologizes like a chainsaw whispers. It was never real. It was never meant to be. And that's what makes them dangerous. They don't belong to the left. They don't belong to the right. They belong to chaos. They belong to the sacred space of comedy that isn't afraid to burn every bridge just to roast marshmallows over the ashes. They have, for 27 seasons, walked a tightrope over outrage, and danced on it. They've been sued, censored, condemned, but never silenced. Because in a world where every joke is dissected, every meme is weaponized, and every statement is spun, Parker and Stone still believe in the power of the punchline. Even if it lands on a sitting, or former, president. This wasn't just a cartoon character in bed with Satan. This was an animated reflection of the times. Of a country addicted to conflict. Of a political system blurred beyond recognition. Of media wars, conspiracy spirals, late night takedowns, and billion-dollar settlements that vanish in news cycles shorter than a TikTok. And amidst all that noise, two guys from Colorado just drew it, voiced it, animated it, aired it, and walked away laughing. Because they know the power of satire isn't in its targets. It's in its truths. And this episode, crude, ridiculous, uncomfortable, held up a mirror to the American experience. It asked, when does parody end and reality begin? When do presidents become punchlines? When do networks settle with politicians instead of investigating them? When did Satan become less scary than a media conglomerate? These questions weren't answered. They weren't even directly asked. But South Park doesn't need to ask. It shows. It dares you to look away, and dares you even harder to keep watching. And we do. We always do. Because buried beneath the fart jokes and satanic sex scenes is a seething intelligence. A cultural commentary sharper than most newsroom editorials. A fearless pursuit of satire so relentless it's outlasted 3 decades of cancel culture, lawsuits, and death threats. In this episode, it was a reminder that even as media bends, leaders fall, and truth evaporates into spectacle, there's still room for the irreverent, the offensive, the unfiltered. There's still space for cartoons to say what real people won't. And South Park is still here. Still pushing, still provoking, still pointing a middle finger at the powerful, left, right, and everything in between. So whether you're a lifelong fan or someone who gasped at the headlines the next day, know this. This wasn't just an episode. It was a warning that satire isn't dead. It just grew horns and climbed into bed. And the punchline, it's all of us.